Stop. Just stop for a moment. And I need you all to understand something before we begin. Every Primarch I've told you about, the Lion's secrets, Fulgrim's perfection, Perturabo's bitterness, the Khan's freedom, Russ's loyalty, Dorn's rigidity, and even Kurza's madness. I've enjoyed exposing them. I've enjoyed showing you their flaws, their failures, and their falls. But not this one. Not Sanguinius. Because even I, as a servant of chaos, a traitor, a being who spent 10,000 years in the warp, even I loved the angel. Everyone loved the angel. So let me tell you how it began. How beauty was born in a wasteland. The infant Sanguinius crashed on Baal Secundus, a moon so irradiated that mortal flesh would char to ash within minutes. A post-apocalyptic nightmare where tribes fought over the scraps while mutant hordes hunted them for sport. This wasn't a death world where you could become strong. This was a dying world where people just died. Baby Sanguinius survived alone in the deep desert. He never spoke of those early days, not even to his closest brothers. What horrors did he see, and what did he have to do to survive? We'll never know. When the tribe called the Blood finally found him, they saw something impossible. A child with wings, actual literal angel wings sprouting from his back, white and perfect in a world of mutation and horror. They should have killed him, because on Baal, a mutation meant death. One extra finger, one discolored eye, and you were exiled to die in the wastelands. But Sanguinius' wings weren't twisted or corrupt. They were beautiful, divine. So they kept him, raised him, and even worshipped him. And Sanguinius saved them. He led the Blood against the mutant hordes. He was a golden warrior with white wings who descended from the sky to kill the things that hunted his people. He protected the weak, inspired the hopeless, made beauty real in a place that had forgotten what beauty was. By the time the Emperor had arrived, Sanguinius was already a legend, already a god to his people. And here's where Sanguinius showed what made him different from every other Primarch. When the Emperor revealed himself, Sanguinius didn't immediately kneel. He negotiated. He was the only Primarch to do this, the only one who looked at the Emperor and said, "What happens if I refuse?" He demanded the Emperor swear an oath to leave the Blood in peace, to let them continue their lives, unmolested. He made his father promise. And only then did Sanguinius kneel. Because Sanguinius loved his people more than he loved destiny, more than he even loved power, and more than he loved his father. That's who Sanguinius was, an angel who chose love over everything else. But there was something wrong with the Blood Angels, something dark hiding beneath all that beauty. The red thirst. Sanguinius' sons were cursed with an overwhelming hunger for blood. In battle, they didn't just kill, they fed. They tore enemies apart with their bare hands and drank deep. The bloodlust was intoxicating, addictive, and impossible to fully control. Sanguinius knew about the thirst. He'd felt it himself. The darkness, the hunger, the rage that threatened to consume everything he was. He called it his black rage, though that term would later mean something far worse. And he hid it. He hid this from the Emperor, from his brothers, from everyone except for Horus. Because Sanguinius lived in a terror that the Emperor would discover the flaw and destroy his legion. The Emperor had already purged 2 legions, the 2nd and the 11th, their records expunged, their Primarchs never spoken of. So what if the Blood Angels were next? So Sanguinius carried the secret like a wound that would never heal. He watched his sons struggle with the thirst, watched them fight to remain noble, despite this darkness in their blood. And he loved them more for it, because they tried so hard, to be better than what they were. The Blood Angels, they became artists, poets, sculptors. They created beauty to balance the horror they inflicted in war. They were the most cultured legion, the most sophisticated, and the most noble. Not despite their curse, but because of it. They knew what they were capable of becoming, so they fought every day to become something else. During the Great Crusade, Sanguinius and Horus became the closest of brothers. Horus was everything Sanguinius admired. He was confident, charismatic, a natural leader. And Sanguinius was everything that Horus secretly envied. He was beloved by all, noble without any effort, and the only Primarch who might have been named the War Master instead. Horus even said it. For all his aloof coolness, Sanguinius alone has the Emperor's soul in his blood. Each of us carries part of our father within us, yet Sanguinius holds it all. It should have been his. Remember that, because Horus remembered it too. When the heresy began, Horus didn't just want Sanguinius on his side. He needed him. Because Sanguinius was the linchpin. If the angel fell, half the Imperium would follow. If Sanguinius declared for Horus, it would validate the rebellion, make it righteous. So Horus sent his brother to Cygnus Prime, supposedly to deal with the Xenos threat. In actuality, it was a trap. A demon world prepared specifically to corrupt the Blood Angels. The demon Curis offered Sanguinius a choice, a terrible yet beautiful choice. To join chaos, sacrifice yourself to the Rage Fire, a psychic construct of pure fury, and in doing so, the Red Thirst would be purged from the Blood Angels Legion forever. His sons would be free, pure, and perfect. All it would cost was Sanguinius' soul. Can you imagine that kind of temptation? Everything you feared, everything you've hidden, everything that threatens your sons, gone, erased. All you have to do is damn yourself. Well, Sanguinius refused. He killed Curis, killed the greater demon, Kabandha, in single combat, who was a bloodthirster of Khorne, a being of pure violence. And Sanguinius broke its back over his knee and cast him into the abyss. He chose damnation for his sons over salvation through chaos, because he'd rather that they struggle with the thirst than to lose their souls. And that's love. Real, sacrificial, terrible love. But there's more, because Sanguinius had visions, just like Kurz. He saw the future. He knew with absolute certainty that he was going to die, that Horus would kill him aboard the Vengeful Spirit, and that his death was inevitable. He could have run. He could have avoided his fate. He could have let someone else face Horus, but he didn't. Because Sanguinius understood something the other Primarchs never grasped, that some things are worth dying for. The Siege of Terra, the final battle, with the Imperium on the brink of annihilation. The Blood Angels fought like angels of death. They held the Eternity Wall spaceport against impossible odds. They died in their thousands, and every death drove the survivors closer to the edge of the Red Thirst. When Horus lowered the shields on his flagship, when he invited the Emperor to face him, Sanguinius was there. He teleported to the Vengeful Spirit alongside the Emperor and Rogel Dorn. They were separated. The Emperor fought deeper into the ship, and Sanguinius found himself facing Horus alone. His brother, his closest friend, the War Master, who he trusted more than anyone. Horus offered him one last chance. Join me, brother. Together we could rule. The Emperor is weak, and we are strong. It should be ours. And Sanguinius, the most noble of all the Primarchs, the one everyone loved, looked at what Horus had become, a creature of chaos, bloated with a dark power, wearing their father's favorite son's skin. And he attacked. They say it was the greatest duel ever fought, the Angel against the War Master. brother against brother, the beautiful against the damned. Sanguinius wounded Horus, actually wounded him, cut through the chaos-blessed armor, and drew the War Master's blood. He proved that even empowered by all four of the Chaos Gods, Horus could still bleed. But Horus was just too strong. The Chaos Gods had made him a monster, and Sanguinius, for all his nobility and all his strength, was still just a Primarch. Horus killed him, broke his body, shattered his wings, and in the final moment, when Sanguinius lay broken at his feet, Horus hesitated, because he just killed his one brother who'd always believed in him, the one Primarch who'd loved him without reservations, his best friend. And that hesitation, that single moment of grief and regret, that's what allowed the Emperor to win. When the Emperor arrived and saw his son's broken body, he unleashed his full power against Horus. And the War Master was still reeling from what he'd done. Sanguinius died, yes, but his death saved the Imperium. And that's what sacrifice truly means. But death wasn't the end for Sanguinius. Death was when the real curse began. When Sanguinius died, every single Blood Angel felt it. Across the galaxy, thousands of his sons experienced his death in perfect psychic clarity. They felt Horus's blows, they felt their Primarch's pain, and they felt him die. And that moment, that trauma, it burned itself into their gene seed, into their very DNA. Now, every Blood Angel experiences it. As they age, the visions come more frequently and more vivid. They see Sanguinius die, over and over, every day, every hour, unable to intervene, unable to save him, and unable to stop watching. Eventually, the visions consume them completely. They fall into the black rage. They become Sanguinius in his final moments. They see everyone around them as Horus. They relive the duel endlessly, fighting and dying and fighting again, trapped in that moment forever. These warriors are formed into the Death Company. They paint their armor black. They're given chain swords and bolt pistols, and they're unleashed on the enemy in a berserker fury, fighting until they die. Because death is the only release from their visions. The Blood Angels are dying, slowly and inevitably, because every warrior will eventually fall to the Black Rage. Every one of Sanguinius' sons will eventually go mad, trapped in the visions of their Primarch's death forever. And that's the price of loving Sanguinius. That's the curse of being one of his sons. 10,000 years later, the Blood Angels endure. They remain everything their Primarch was. Noble, artistic, cultured, and struggling against the darkness. They create art. They write poetry. They craft beautiful things, even as they wage the ugliest wars. Because that's what Sanguinius taught them. That beauty matters. That nobility matters. And that you fight the darkness by refusing to become it. But the Black Rage is spreading. More Blood Angels fall to it every year, and the Death Company grows larger. Successor chapters, like the Fresh Terrors, are barely holding on. Their gene seed is degrading faster than it can be repaired. And yet they continue. They fight with grace, even as the madness takes them. And they serve the Imperium, even as it forgets why Sanguinius died. There's a figure that appears sometimes on the Blood Angels' battlefields, the Sanguiner, a golden angel with white wings who descends to save the chapter in its darkest moments. Some say it's Sanguinius' noble spirit, separated from his body when he died. Others claim it's Azkaellon, the first captain of the Sanguinary Guard, who is preserved beyond death. But I think it's more like hope. Hope made manifest. The Blood Angels' desperate belief that their Primarch still watches over them. And maybe he does, because if any Primarch could transcend death through pure love for his sons, it would have to be Sanguinius. So what can you learn from Sanguinius? That beauty and darkness can coexist. The Blood Angels are cursed with a red thirst, but they chose to be artists anyway. They carry the darkness, but they create the light. Your flaws don't define you, but how you respond to them does. That sacrifice means giving up what you value the most. Sanguinius could have saved himself. He could have avoided his death, but he chose to face it because his sacrifice mattered. Real love isn't about getting what you want. It's about what you're really willing to lose. Also, nobility is a choice, not a condition. Every blood angel fights the thirst every day, and every one of them could surrender to it. But they choose nobility instead. You're not noble because you don't have dark urges. You're noble because you resist them. We also learn that some things are worth dying for. Sanguinius knew that his death was coming, and he walked towards it anyways. Not because he was suicidal, but because the Imperium needed him to do so. Sometimes, the most important thing you can do is to stand in the gap, even knowing that it will destroy you. And finally, we learn that love is the only thing that matters in the end. Sanguinius didn't fight for glory. He didn't fight for victory. He fought because he loved his people, loved his brothers, loved humanity. And that love transcended his death, living on in every blood angel who chooses nobility over rage. Well, I told you at the beginning, I loved Sanguinius. We all did. Even those of us who turned to chaos. Even those of us who betrayed everything. Those of us who became monsters. We all loved the angel. Because Sanguinius was what we all wanted to be. Noble without effort. Beautiful without vanity. Strong without cruelty. He made us believe that maybe, just maybe, we could all be better than what we were. And when Horus killed him, we felt that light go out of the galaxy, and something died in all of us too. The Blood Angels are dying, slowly consuming themselves in the memory of their Primarch's death. And maybe that's fitting. Maybe the only proper way to honor Sanguinius is to die trying to be like him. To the noble end, to be beautiful to the last, and fighting the darkness even as it consumes you. Your Imperium worships the Emperor as a god, but I think they should worship Sanguinius instead. Because the Emperor demanded obedience, but Sanguinius, he inspired love. And love is more powerful than any weapon the Emperor ever forged. So here's to the angel, the brightest star that ever burned, the Primarch who died so the rest of us could live, even those of us who don't deserve it. And may his sons find peace. May the Black Rage someday end. And may they remember that their Primarch didn't die in despair. He died in hope. So to Sanguinius, to the great angel, to the one Primarch who proved that even in this nightmare galaxy, beauty and nobility can still exist. Well, even after 10,000 years, his death still hurts. But next time we'll discuss someone else. Someone who didn't make us believe in better things. And there you have it, folks. And once again, the galaxy is full of lies. But Sanguinius was true. And we killed him for it.